Budapest looks like one of the richest cities in Europe. The parliament shines like a palace beside the Danube. The bridges glow at night. The old cafes, thermal baths, and imperial buildings make Hungary look powerful, elegant, and almost impossibly wealthy. For a visitor seeing it for the first time, the reaction is almost automatic. This place looks rich. But there is one problem. Hungary is not as rich as it looks. Behind the golden lights of Budapest, there is a country shaped by lost territory, fallen empire, communism, foreign investment, and a long struggle to turn beauty into real wealth. So the question is not just why Budapest looks so beautiful. The real question is much deeper. How can a country look this rich, while still fighting to become as wealthy as its own capital makes it seem? Because Hungary is not like Monaco, Switzerland, or Luxembourg. It is not one of the richest countries in Europe. It does not have the same level of salaries, wealth, or financial security found in the strongest Western economies. And yet, visually, Budapest can feel richer than many places that actually have more money. This is not just the story of a beautiful European country. It is the story of a nation that still wears the image of an empire, even after losing much of the power that created that image. And if you enjoy documentaries about hidden wealth, powerful countries, and the secrets behind the world's most fascinating places, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Because Hungary is not only beautiful, it is a country full of clues. And the first clue is hidden in its capital. During the day, Budapest reveals even more of its mystery. Tourists walk along the Danube and take photos of buildings that look almost unreal. The streets are full of details. Domes, statues, old stone facades, iron balconies, and grand squares make the city feel like a place designed for kings, ministers, and wealthy families. But the deeper someone looks, the more unusual the story becomes. The beauty of Budapest is not simply the result of modern wealth. It is not only a sign of today's economy. Much of it comes from a different time, a time when Hungary was connected to something much larger than its current size suggests. The city looks like a capital of power because in many ways it once was. Its buildings were not created just to be useful. They were created to communicate importance. They were built to say, this nation matters, this city belongs among the great cities of Europe, and this people has a place in history. That is why Budapest can feel confusing. It has the visual language of a rich empire, but the economic reality of a country still rebuilding its place in Europe. For the viewer, this creates the perfect tension. On the surface, Hungary looks noble, elegant, almost wealthy beyond explanation. But behind the beauty, there is a deeper truth. The country has survived empire, collapse, war, communism, transition, and economic pressure. Its streets are not just pretty, they are witnesses. And to understand why Hungary looks so rich, the story has to go back to the time when this country was tied to one of the great powers of Europe. Because Budapest did not become this impressive by accident. It was built to reflect ambition. To understand Hungary, it is necessary to look beyond the country that exists today. Modern Hungary is landlocked, medium-sized, and often seen as part of Central or Eastern Europe. But historically it was connected to something much bigger, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This empire was one of the major powers of Europe before the First World War. It connected different peoples, languages, territories, and cultures under one vast political structure. Vienna and Budapest were not just cities. They were centers of influence. And Budapest, especially, carried a special message. It was not meant to be a small provincial capital. It was meant to stand beside the great cities of Europe. That is why so much of the city feels monumental. The parliament was built with enormous scale. The boulevards were planned with elegance. Bridges connected both sides of the Danube, not only for movement, but also for symbolism. Churches, opera houses, cafes, and public buildings gave the city a feeling of confidence. Hungary wanted to be seen. It wanted to show that it was not just a piece of an empire. It had its own identity, its own pride, and its own vision of greatness. And this is one of the secrets behind the country's image today. Much of what visitors admire in Budapest was created during a time when the country was reaching upward, trying to prove itself, trying to stand tall in Europe. So when people arrive today and say, "Hungary looks rich," they are not completely wrong. They are seeing the remains of a wealthy historical moment. But they are also seeing a kind of illusion, because buildings can preserve power long after the power itself has changed. A city can remember what a country once was. Budapest does this in stone, iron, glass, and light. Every grand building seems to hold a memory. The parliament remembers ambition. The old cafes remember intellectual life. The thermal baths remember leisure and tradition. The wide avenues remember a time when the city wanted to compete with Paris, Vienna, and other European capitals. This is why Hungary has such a strong emotional effect on visitors. It does not simply show beauty. It shows lost greatness. A person walking through Budapest may feel that they are inside a country that has always been rich. But the truth is more layered. Hungary's visible wealth is partly historical wealth. It is wealth frozen in architecture. It is the echo of a period when the country had greater influence, larger political importance, and a stronger position inside Europe's old order. But this creates a painful contrast, because a nation can inherit beautiful buildings without inheriting the same power that created them. A palace can remain standing after an empire falls. A parliament can still shine after borders change. A city can still look imperial, even when the country around it has had to rebuild from loss. And Hungary experienced exactly that. The same century that gave Budapest its unforgettable image also prepared the ground for one of the country's deepest wounds. The empire that helped create the city's grandeur would not last forever. And when it fell, Hungary did not simply lose political status. It lost territory, influence, direction, and a large part of the world it once knew. The shine remained. But the foundation had changed. After the First World War, the old European map was broken apart. Empires that had shaped the continent for generations began to fall. The Austro-Hungarian Empire disappeared. New borders were drawn. New countries emerged. And Hungary was forced into a much smaller version of itself. For Hungary, this was not just a political event. It was a national shock. The country lost a huge part of its former territory and influence. Millions of ethnic Hungarians found themselves outside the new borders. The nation that had once been connected to imperial power now had to face a new reality, smaller, weaker, and deeply wounded. This moment changed the Hungarian mind. It created a sense of loss that still matters in the country's memory. It made the contrast between past and present even sharper. Budapest still looked grand. The monuments still stood. The parliament still faced the Danube with confidence. But the country behind those walls had changed dramatically. This is one of the reasons Hungary's story is so powerful for a documentary. It is not a simple story of poverty or wealth. It is a story of appearance versus history. The capital continued to look like a place of power, but the nation had lost much of the size and position that made that image believable. Then the 20th century brought even more pressure. Hungary would face political instability, another world war, Soviet influence, and decades under communism. Each period left a mark, and each mark pushed the country further away from the Western wealth that it once seemed close to. The old grandeur did not disappear, but the path forward became much harder. After the Second World War, Hungary became part of the Soviet sphere of influence. This changed the country again. Instead of developing like Western European economies, Hungary lived for decades under a communist system. The state controlled much of economic life. Private enterprise was limited. The country's direction was shaped by political pressure from the East, not by free competition with the West. For ordinary people, life was often stable in some ways, but restricted in others. The system offered structure but limited opportunity. It controlled prices, jobs, production, and movement. It slowed the kind of private wealth creation that helped Western Europe grow faster after the war. This period matters because it helps explain why Hungary, despite its impressive appearance, did not become as rich as countries like Austria, Germany, or Switzerland. While Western Europe was rebuilding with open markets, investment, and strong institutions, Hungary was moving through a different economic path. The gap became real. And when communism finally ended, Hungary did not simply wake up as a rich European country. It had to transform itself. Factories had to change. Markets had to open. Foreign investors had to be attracted. Institutions had to adapt. People had to learn how to live in a new economic system after decades of state control. This transition was not easy. It created opportunity, but also uncertainty. It brought freedom, but also inequality. It connected Hungary to the modern European economy, but also exposed the country to competition. And this is where the next part of the story begins. Because Hungary did not rebuild itself by becoming a financial paradise. It rebuilt itself by becoming useful. Hungary's modern strength is not always visible in tourist photos. It is not only in castles, bridges, cafes, or thermal baths. A large part of Hungary's modern value comes from geography. The country sits in the heart of Europe. It is close to Austria, Slovakia, Romania, Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, and Ukraine. This position makes it a natural bridge between different parts of the continent. For companies, this matters. Goods can move across borders. Factories can connect to European supply chains. Workers can participate in industries tied to Germany, Austria, and other major economies. Roads, railways, and logistics routes make Hungary useful in a way that is not always obvious to tourists. This is one of the hidden reasons the country became attractive after communism. It had a central location. It had workers with technical skills. It had lower costs than many Western European countries. And after joining the European Union, it became even more connected to the continent's economic system. Foreign companies began to see Hungary as a place where production could happen efficiently, not as expensive as the West, not as distant as other regions, close enough to major markets, skilled enough to support advanced manufacturing. This is the quiet economic secret behind modern Hungary. It is not one of Europe's richest countries, but it is strategically placed inside Europe's industrial machine, and that gives it importance. The country may not have the financial aura of Switzerland or the luxury image of Monaco, but it has something else. It has location, infrastructure, industry, and usefulness. In the modern economy, being useful can create real power, but it can also create dependence. To understand modern Hungary, it is important to look beyond Budapest. Outside the tourist areas, another Hungary exists. A country of industrial zones, highways, logistic centers, and factories. A country deeply connected to manufacturing, especially the automotive sector. For years, Hungary has attracted car makers, suppliers, and companies connected to vehicles, electronics, and, more recently, battery production. This turned the country into an important piece of Europe's industrial network. The logic is clear. Companies can produce in Hungary with access to the European market, while often facing lower labor costs than in Western Europe. The workforce is educated enough for technical production. The location allows goods to move efficiently. The country offers incentives to attract investment. This helped Hungary grow and modernize. It created jobs. It brought technology. It connected the country to global supply chains. It gave Hungary a role that many smaller countries would like to have. But this model also has a hidden risk. When a country depends heavily on foreign companies and export industries, its economy can become vulnerable to changes outside its control. If demand slows in Europe, Hungary feels it. If the car industry struggles, Hungary feels it. If investment drops, the country feels it. If larger economies change direction, Hungary has to react. This is why Hungary's wealth feels complicated. It is not poor. It is not irrelevant. It is not standing still, but its prosperity is tied to forces that are bigger than itself. That creates the central tension of the country today. Hungary is valuable to Europe, but many Hungarians still do not feel as wealthy as the beauty of Budapest suggests. This is the truth hidden behind Hungary's most beautiful images. Budapest looks like a capital of wealth because it carries the memory of an imperial age. The parliament, the bridges, the cafes, the baths, and the wide avenues all tell a story of ambition and grandeur. But the country's economic reality tells another story. Hungary is not one of the richest nations in Europe. Its wages are lower than in much of Western Europe. Many young people look abroad for better opportunities. Some regions feel far away from the beauty and energy of Budapest. And the country's economy depends heavily on foreign investment, exports, and industries that can change quickly. So Hungary lives with a powerful contrast. It looks grand, but it is still catching up. It feels historic, but it is still building its future. It is inside the European Union, but it does not enjoy the same level of wealth as Europe's strongest economies. This contrast does not make Hungary less interesting. It makes it more fascinating, because the country's true richness is not only measured in money, it is measured in survival. Hungary has survived imperial collapse, territorial loss, communist control, economic transition, and modern pressure. And even after all of that, it remains culturally powerful, visually unforgettable, and strategically important. That is why the country feels so different. Its beauty is not fake, but it is incomplete. Budapest shows what Hungary once dreamed of becoming. The modern economy shows what Hungary is still trying to become. And between those two worlds, the real country appears. In the end, Hungary is not a simple success story. It is not the story of a tiny, rich country that became wealthy through banking, luxury, or tax advantages. It is not Monaco. It is not Switzerland. It is not Luxembourg. Hungary is something else. It is a country that looks like an empire, remembers a lost greatness, and keeps fighting for a stronger place in the modern world. Its wealth is layered. There is visible wealth in Budapest's architecture. There is historical wealth in its culture, music, food, literature, and identity. There is strategic wealth in its location at the center of Europe. There is industrial wealth in its factories, supply chains, and foreign investment. But there is also pressure, lower incomes, economic dependence, regional inequality, political tension, and the constant challenge of turning national importance into a better life for ordinary people. That is the lesson hidden in Hungary's story. A country can look rich because of what it inherited, but it becomes truly strong only when the people living there can feel that strength in everyday life. Hungary's greatest mystery is not why Budapest is so beautiful. The real mystery is how a country that lost so much still manages to look so powerful, attract attention, and remain important in the center of Europe. That is the wow behind Hungary. It is not rich in the simple way people imagine. It is rich in memory, in survival, in location, in culture, and in the ability to keep standing after history tried to reduce it. Hungary looks like a country wearing the clothes of an empire, but underneath that image there is a nation still rebuilding its future. And that is what makes it unforgettable.